Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line this morning. We have Bevy Smith. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for joining us, even though it's Zoom. You know what I mean? Zoom don't do you no justice, Bevy.
Thank you, baby. I'm meant to be taken in, live and uncensored.
That's right.
Well, congratulations on the new book, Revelations.
Hey, lessons from a mother, auntie, and bestie.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. You know where that title came from, that subtitle?
Where?
So the mother is what my gay sons call me.
Okay.
The auntie is what all my young girls that watch me on TV or see me on social media and hear what I talk about, my real life experiences. Mm-hmm. That's what they call me. And then the bestie is for my contemporaries that see me on TV and like, well, I want to take a trip with her. Oh, I want to hang out with her. I want to have cocktails with her. So that's where it came from. It's the relatability of the Bevy Smith situation.
Now, some women don't like to be called auntie. Why doesn't that bother you?
Well, no. If you're too old, you can't call me auntie. That's why I said my young girls.
Young girl, okay.
Gotcha.
So you can't be 40 and up talking about Auntie Bev. Like, that's not going to work. We could hang out together. We probably, carousing and scheming on the same men. We're contemporaries.
So the book is out today. So why was it time to write Revelations?
It was time to write Revelations because they gave me a book deal, Envy. You know what I mean?
Besides the money in the book deal.
Oh, okay. Well, because honestly, it was a culmination of the 15-year journey it took for me being a really successful fashion advertising executive, first at Vibe magazine and then at Rolling Stone magazine. And then I quit at the age of 38 at the height of my career to pursue this thing to become a media personality. And no one really believed that I could do it because, as we all know, media is a youth-oriented game. But I knew I could do it. I was like, I'm 38, but I could do it. I have that passion. I have that fire. I have that dream and desire. So I just put the pedal to the metal. And 15 years later, Mama, I made it. But this book represents the culmination of that journey. And so now it's on to the next one.
Gotcha.
It is so hard for people to take that leap sometimes. You talk about, first of all, being at Vibe magazine where you had that amazing T&E expenses, everything paid for. You had carte blanche to everything. And for a lot of people, they get stuck in feeling that, okay, I have it so great over here. When is it time for you to step out and do your own thing? So how did you decide that it was time for you to leave behind all of the perks at Vibe to step out?
Well, I was a miserable bitch, Angela. That's when I knew it was time to go because I was just really unhappy and I was making people around me unhappy and I just was bored and I just couldn't get excited by anything. And in the book, I talk about, the Solange song, Cranes in the Sky. I tried to, shop it away. I tried to sex it away. I tried to drink it away. I was doing everything to try and make myself feel better. But ultimately, I had to look inside myself and really discover what was it that I truly wanted out of life. And what I really wanted was creative freedom and being tethered to a 9-to-5 job, no matter how fabulous it was and how many perks I had was not going to get me there.
Is that what you call the ugly side of your beautiful life?
That's the ugly side of my beautiful life. When you're you have everything that most people look at and say, oh, that's a dream job. Because, I'm from Harlem. I'm from 150th Street and 8th Avenue. But here I am sitting front row in Milan and Paris and New York. I'm jet setting all over the world. I'm flying first class. And I'm doing all these things in the late 90s, early 2000s. So now you see a lot more people doing that kind of stuff. But back when I was doing it, was Emile Wilbekin, Andre Leon Talley, Bethany and Hardison. It was not a lot of people that were Black and having that kind of access. So it was a beautiful life until it wasn't.
Man, why do you think in this industry it's so hard for people to walk away from situations that they know they're not happy at?
Well, because it's the lights, it's the glitz and the glam. Also, too, I think a lot of times when you are coming from a place of humble beginnings, right, a humble background, you kind of feel ungrateful for saying that you don't want something that you, one, work so hard for, but then also, too, that most people that come from your background would be happy to have, you know what I mean? Because we all have friends that are looking at our lives because they work 9-to-5 jobs and they're like, I wish I had your crazy schedule. And you're like, I'm hectic, I'm I'm frazzled. I need a break. And they're looking at it like, you need a break from what? From talking all day and get paid, millions of dollars? They looking at you. I know that y'all can connect with that, right?
I think comfortability too. I think a lot of times it's I'm in a comfort zone. If I leave, I still got to pay my house note. I still got to pay my school loans. I still got to help family members. And if I leave, I might lose all of that.
Yeah, but you can't be afraid to lose something like that if you really believe in what you're setting out to do. Like I mean, now in the book I talk about broke but blissful. So I would go from like town cars every day to taking the bus. I go from $250 a night dinners to a can of salmon, making salmon croquettes. So that was a big part of the journey and a tough part of the journey. But the even better part about being broke but blissful was that I found out about who I really was inside, my tenacity, right? So I was able to create my business, Dinner with Bevy, because I was broke. So I took what was at my hands. And I had amazing relationships with celebrities, and I had amazing relationships with fashion houses. And I put those two things together and I created the business. I would have never thought of myself as an entrepreneur had I not gone broke. So it was all good. And, everything is as it should be.
That's right.
You talk about how you were a really tough boss too, but what's the difference, right, between being a tough boss, because there's a fine line between being a tough boss and being what you call a miserable bitch. So you realize, okay, maybe this isn't just being a tough boss, I'm just unhappy.
Yeah. You know what? I think honestly, because I stand by a lot of what I did when I was being a tough boss, when I was in a miserable space, because I know I did a good thing, because so many of the people who were my assistants do come back and say, you taught me so much. I learned so much on your dime. I learned so much by watching you and, all that kind of stuff. So I know it was a good thing. But you know what? One of the things I do regret is that I used to, I was a salesperson. So it was all about my quota, my numbers. And I used to be like, I used to have my assistant play Gangsta Boo, where them dollars at, and I would blast it real loud, and I would ring a bell, and I'd be like, get the call in, get Gucci on the line, get Vuitton on the line, and I would just be like barking out orders. And at times it was fun, but for my assistant, sometimes it was very, very, very stressful. But sales is a stressful kind of gig anyway, so you know how that goes.
I don't want to give too much of the book away, but what is the red soul proposition?
Oh, the red soul proposition. So, Angela, you remember just at the beginning probably of when you really started wearing your high heels and everything. But remember, Blahnik used to be the shoe, right? Manolo Blahnik. Yep. Yep. And then all of a sudden, Louboutin, it felt like it came out of nowhere, right?
Correct.
And everybody was like, I need a red sole. I need a red bottom, right? Okay, so that's what it's about. It's like, how did someone like Louboutin just come out of seemingly nowhere and just snatch the issue position from Manolo Blahnik? And it was because they had that distinctive, we're the only ones doing it, red soul. So I'm asking you, what is your red soul? And the way you get to it is I ask 3 questions, and they're really deep, introspective questions. Who are you at your core? How are you being perceived? How would you like to be perceived? And you answer those questions, and I take you through a whole thing in the book on how to get to those answers. And then that's how you define what makes you authentically you. And that's how you can use that as your selling point to create your personal brand.
Now, can you really control how people perceive you, though, Bevy?
Okay, so in the book, I talk about the fact that now, of course, people are going to have their own perceptions of you, and we can't take it all in. We can't absorb it. But if it's like 90 out of 100 people saying the same thing, you might want to check on that. If the vast majority of people are saying rancid things about you, then you might want to make some adjustments if you're not cool with what they're saying. But if you like being a bitch, if you like being an asshole, some people revel in that. They're like, yeah, I'm the asshole, I'm the bad guy, then have at it. But if that's not how you want to be perceived, then you can make some tweaks. And what I found is the tweak that I need to make was I had to start letting people see I was a human and that I had feelings, because I had such I was so entrenched in hip hop that I was so Big Bev from Uptown and I was so swagged out that people didn't even know I was like a sensitive person who actually had feelings and had family and all that. And now when you look at me, you see all of that. You see the more sensitive side, the softer side of that. So I had to have her come up.
Because
You
you make so many sacrifices, and you discuss that too. And I find that's something that a lot of us have had to do. And you feel like you have to make them, when the truth is you can say no to things sometimes, right? And you discuss missing like really important milestones when it comes to your friends and your family. And sometimes you do have to say, okay, this is a great opportunity, but there's always going to be something amazing happening. And so it's okay to sometimes say no to certain things. So how do you manage that balance and know like what is more important? Sometimes work is more important and sometimes real life is more important. How did you deal with that?
Well, you know, I'm so proud of myself because I really did learn that lesson, and I learned it the hard way from missing all these big milestone things. Like I talk about in the book, I missed my sister's wedding. You know, I miss my mom's, lots of her birthdays, because her birthday happens right around Milan Men's Fashion Week. So I would never be in town, you know. But like just recently, last year in February, my dad's 95th birthday was on February 8th. And I got a chance to be on Celebrity Family Feud. And they just happened to be taping on February 8th. Now, in my old life, I would have been like, Daddy, it's Celebrity Family Feud. It's ABC. You know, I'm trying to get in front of the network situations. So, Dad, I'm not going to be able to be there. And to my parents' credit, they're the type of people that would definitely be like, go. Like my mom was like, you should go, Beverly. Your dad understanding. You'll see him the next day. And I was like, no, it's his 95th. And I called up Andy Cohen because I played on the Radio Andy team. And I said, you know, my dad's birthday is the 8th. I can't go and do it. And he was like, we'll change the date. So they changed the date. And I went to my dad's 95th. And thank God I did, because as you guys know from reading the book, he passed away of COVID in April. So if I had missed that, now who would I be? Where would I be? I wouldn't be able to be doing this interview because I'd be living with regret.
Right.
I'm sorry to hear that. You know, you mentioned Andy Cohen just now, and you got the chapter when Bevy met Andy. You seem to have a great relationship with Andy Cohen. So what do you think about some of Nene Leakes' allegations that Andy is racist?
I can't really speak on that because that's her situation and her connection with him. You know, all I can say is the way he and I work is in a very respectful way. And he really, there's a certain amount of deference that he gives me. Yeah. Well, like, as you know, I have a show on his network on Sirius XM.
Yep.
And I don't watch reality TV. And Andy has never tried to step in and be like, you should have X, Y, and Z on the show or whatever. He's never tried to put any of his beliefs or his ideas onto me or my show. So he respects me, I respect him. So it's all good from where I sit.
How did you and Andy meet? How did y'all get so cool and so close?
We met because I actually auditioned for the Tim Gunn show. It was on Bravo, and I got the gig. And when I got the contract, which was from Business Affairs, Andy was just an executive at that point. He wasn't a celebrity. And when I got the deal from Business Affairs, it was like just not a good contract. And I turned it down. And then I had to go in and meet with Andy and his boss at the time. And he was like, you're even more fabulous in real life. We're going to work together. And so for 7 years, he tried to put me in different shows. As a matter of fact, I did a pilot with Nene called Fashionality, and that's where I got the name Bevelations from.
Now, how did you know at that time that the contract was so bad? Because most people, if they get a contract, if it says TV, they sign it. What gave you to say, you know what, I'm not taking this deal?
Well, remember, I was a businesswoman, right? So I wasn't somebody who was happy to just get a check.
Right.
You know, I had already made money in my life. I had already been successful in corporate America. So I knew how to read a contract. And I was like, well, this doesn't look good. As I say in the book, I would have been on the side of the bus on the billboard, and I would have been riding the bus. That wasn't going to work for me.
Got you.
Now, Bevy, as a fashion expert and somebody who came up during a time when there were not a lot of Black people in that business, especially with some of the more popular luxury brands, do you think that things have gotten better in that respect now? Because we see a lot of these mistakes that these luxury brands have made, and then they have to call in and try to figure out a way to fix and right their wrongs. And then you also talked about how fashion plays into the insecurities that we have. So I just want to know, what do you think improvements have been made with that?
Well, I think that we have to keep our foot literally on their backs to make them give us what we deserve. At the end of the day, and you guys know this better than most, urban culture is pop culture.
That's
we
right.
move the crowd.
That's right.
Where we go, everyone follows. And that has to do with fashion as well. I remember when I used to go over there, I would take books about James Van Der Zee, the famous Harlem Renaissance photographer, because I wanted them to see this was a part of our legacy. Us being fly was not a fluke. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't happen chance. It was happenstance. It was literally in our cultural DNA. And so they need to respect that and understand that. And so we can no longer be okay with just like taking scraps. That's the reason why I respect what Kirby is doing over at Paya Moss. I respect Telfar. I respect the guys who are going out there and being real renegade about it and in your face. Like every time that Kirby does a show, it's all Black power. He lets the Black editors in first. All the Black folks who sit in front row, and he does that in a really powerful and strong way. And they still got to play his game. And we all have to know that. We have to know that we have power. We can't be sitting around, may I have some more? Can you get me in the room? No, those days are gone. Like I worked in fashion in the 90s, so the kids today don't have to do that.
Right.
That's right.
What did you think about that Vogue cover with Kamala Harris that everyone's talking about?
Yeah, right? Okay. We wanted more. We wanted more. I mean, she's the first Black vice president. She is one step away from being the president. And I don't mind the Converse. What I didn't like about it looked haphazard. It looked, it just didn't look as polished as it could have. And I know they said it was about relatability and all of that kind of stuff, but I thought it could have been styled a little better.
Absolutely.
That was my take.
Now, let me ask you a question. What did you think about the whole Birkin craze that went on during the pandemic when people were going out of their way to spend this money and people were talking about if he don't buy your Birkin, throw him back to the streets? What are your thoughts on that craze?
Well, now, Envy, I'm coming from it from two places. Now, you want to hear Big Bev from Uptown's answer, or you want to hear Beverly Smith, grown-ass woman answer?
Both.
We want to hear both.
Okay, so Big Bev from Uptown. If I was in my 20s and I was, doing the situations as I once did.
And what part of Harlem? Tell them your block. What part of Harlem?
I'm from 150th and 8th. So
Okay,
I'm 5 blocks from Brooklyn.
Okay.
I'm real Harlem. I'm not like that 109th Street and Central
You're not on the
Park.
border of Central Park. You're in Harlem.
I'm not doing that.
You went to Grant's Tomb and you shopped on 125th Street. All right.
Exactly. So if I'm that girl, if I'm Big Bet from Uptown, I'm certainly feeling that spirit of if he cannot give you your Birkin, going back to the streets or what have you. Now, as a grown woman, what I will say is this. It's cute and fine and everything, but what I will tell you is I don't want you to have that Birkin and that's all you have.
Correct.
Because the Birkin is actually a good investment, but if you dog it out because that's the only bag you have, and you riding the train and the bus with it, and then you putting it in your locker at the CVS and it's not gonna be of much value. So I would say for me, honestly, it's so funny because back in the day, I was gonna buy a Birkin, but literally, and I'm talking about back in the day, I'm talking about like the 90s. I literally did not buy the bag because I felt I didn't have enough money to literally carry the bag and be okay if the bag got something on it.
Right.
You just want to be acting cool, like, don't come near my Birkin. That means you don't need it. If you don't know how to act with it, if it can't just be a bag, then you probably don't need it. If it has to be announced everywhere you go, it's a Birkin. It's
Damn.
okay.
Bevy, COVID was hard on so many people's mental health. I read an article, where you was talking about, how you were dealing with your mental health during the pandemic. How did you maintain, especially after the passing of your father?
Yeah, that was tough. And honestly, Charlamagne, I don't think any of us have really dealt with COVID because we're still in the middle of the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be years of us that are going to be dealing with the repercussions of COVID. Also, too, for any of us that had COVID, we don't even know what our health is really, we don't really know how we will progress as time goes on. There are people that have lingering effects, and then there are people that are talking about, maybe later on down the line, you might have heart issues and different things like that. Also, the other part of it is just mentally, we're still under duress, you know what I mean? And so for me, it's so funny because as soon as COVID started, I got back into therapy. Like I got back into therapy in March, top of March, and then I got COVID like maybe March 13th.
Wow.
So that's what I did because I really needed that. That's what really helped me. And then of course my family and my friends, but certainly that therapy, especially after my dad died, I desperately needed someone to talk to because, it was just so surreal. It's like I got well and then my dad passed. It was bonkers.
Were you able to go to the funeral?
That was awful too, Charlamagne. Like my mom was 92 at the time. She's 93. Her birthday was just on January 8th. So
Happy born day.
Happy birthday, Mama.
And so the doctors were like, your mother should not go. Because again, it was April. So they really didn't know anything about the disease at that point. And my mother was like, I cannot not show up to my husband's funeral of more than 50 years. Like, that's not going to happen. We put her on a hazmat suit. We could not sit near her. She had to sit in a pew a pew by herself. We had no one speak at the funeral. We had everyone speak via Zoom. We all sat away from her. I was able to get a second COVID test to find out that I was negative, so I was able to go. But there were other members of my family that were sick and could not attend. And my dad was the patriarch of our family, a World War II veteran. He would have had a really beautiful homegoing, and instead, it was like Zoom and 10 people in the chapel.
Well, that's what you got to celebrate a life like that forever. You know what I mean? You can't leave it to that one ceremony called a funeral.
Yeah, it's true. But shout out to Whitney Gail Benter. I know you guys know her.
Whitney.
When my daddy died, there was no room in any funeral homes or anything to take dead people. Remember, they had them stacked up in New York City in the refrigerated cars. And Whitney called her family and got me into her family's funeral home. So
wow.
You
know what I want to ask? When you were heavy into the fashion thing and you were traveling back and forth, how difficult was it for you? Because I know it's difficult for women, but being a black woman, I know it had to be even crazier. And like I seen what they said about Alexander Wang the other day and some of the things that people had to deal with around him. What did you have to deal with? I'm sure it had to be crazy.
You know what? It wasn't ever in your face crazy like that. And I think because the Vibe Tribe was so deep and we would roll so deep and we would roll with like celebrities, like Vibe took, Pop the Milan and we took, Chianne to Milan. We took a lot of big celebrities to Milan and everything. So we were so coveted in that space. The one thing I will say is that there was the microaggressions that happened, right? And it was, one of those things where we always had to fight to make sure we ensured that we got the right table at the right restaurant, the right front row, seat, all those kind of things. We would have to always, like I said, keep our foot on their backs and make sure that they were giving us what we deserved. And we did not accept any shorts. And then, Emil Wilbekin, shout out to him, who was the fashion director first, and then he became the editor-in-chief of Vibe. I remember when he did a really beautiful cover of Lil' Kim, and he literally couldn't get Blahniks, even though she had a beautiful outfit on. But when he called over to the Blahnik office, they would not give shoes. And then Iman, who was best friends with Mr. Blahnik, and who was the beauty at large editor of Vibe, we let her know, and she called up and got all the shoes. But why did it have to go that way?
That's right.
Why did we have to flex and use a supermodel to get something done Kim was an international star, is an international star.
Right.
That should have been a no-brainer for them.
Absolutely.
But that's the kind of things that we used to have to go for.
Was there a big difference with that when it came to Rolling Stone? Because you went to Rolling Stone after that. So would that call have gone differently?
Well, Angela, the difference was, my love, is that at Rolling Stone, they didn't want to put black folks on the cover. So then you had the flip side, right? Mm-hmm. So that wouldn't even have come up because they wouldn't put no black people on the cover. Like back when I was there, it was crazy. They would rather put a dead Beatle on the damn cover than Beyonce.
Damn.
Not really, but like if you guys Google how many times the Beatles have been on the cover of Rolling Stone, it's crazy. You're like, okay, but these people and Bob Dylan, They just stuck on, well, back then they were really stuck on keeping true. And they used to tell us, Black people don't sell magazine covers.
That's exactly why I purposely get members of the Beatles wrong just to piss white people off. I'd be like, Elton John was in the Beatles, Sting was in the Beatles. I do that on purpose because I know how much they love the Beatles.
Yes, that's like the holy grail right there. You can't mess with them. So yeah, at Rolling Stone, it was just bonkers. And again, I was there in 2005, 2004. And why was I the only Black person in any kind of management space? Like, that was crazy. It was like Torre was there as a writer, and I was there in the corporate side. But that was it. Besides mailroom guys, and I don't even think they let you be Black and be a receptionist. And that's something else too, guys, that we have to talk about too when it comes to racism. It's weird. We can't sometimes even get good entry-level jobs.
Right.
Because if someone's a receptionist, that's the face of a company.
That's right.
And they didn't want that, but they have you back there in the mailroom, and they have you being security.
Wow.
You know what I wanted to ask you,
and the
Bevy?
answer to your question is over 30 times. That would over 30 times the Beatles have been on the cover of Rolling Stone.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's silly. I want to ask you too, Bevy. Like, we live in this era now, especially like in the fashion industry. Like, beauty comes in so many different forms now, right? But what ways does the fashion industry still like thrive on the insecurities of women?
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I mean, listen. They first of all, they did by the credo: if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So now body positivity is in. Now diversity of skin color is in. But those things are only in for them because it means that they get to make more money. Do they literally really care? Like, we saw over the holidays, all of these white magazines putting out their Black gift giving guides. I was like, what? All these years, y'all have never paid any attention. Like, Angela, I'm sure you got called for so many different white fashion magazines. They all want to talk to you now. I'm sure you guys got called some white, fitness magazines and fashion magazines and different things. Now they want to invite us to the party because they say they can make some money. I'm sorry, baby.
A lot of white corporations want to have you on to come talk about diversity.
But you know what, though, I will say about that, Angela? That's okay because they're giving us that nice fat.
That's right.
Bigger check. So I come in here and talk about diversity for my coin.
And equity.
Huh?
And equity in a lot of these situations.
Yes, exactly. So that's cool. Well, I'll take it that way. But I don't like these false platitudes of, we need to do something. Y'all been needed to do something. My girl Brandis Daniels over at Harlem Fashion Row, she has built up this wonderful company for like over 10 years. And it's only this year that she was able to get the CFDA and Vogue magazine to really get behind Harlem Fashion Row. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy about that. They gave her $1 million endowment. She was able to give, I think, maybe 20 Black fashion designers substantial amounts of money to really have to build up their business. That's awesome. But Brandis has been doing this work for a long time. And so, okay.
That's great.
Wow.
I'm going to ask you one more thing too. So when it came to dating, because you did reference Cranes in the Sky, Solange's song, and Sex It Away and all of that, and we talk about balance. Were you able to have a relationship while you were doing the things while you were working the way that you were, because work was priority for you?
Yeah, I was having lots of relationships. And relationships.
So you say I was the original Lori Harvey.
Hello and good morning. Every young woman should be doing the Lori Harvey. Every young woman should be. Because one, you want to have good stories. You understand? You want to have juicy stories. You want to have the shenanigans. In the book I don't name names, but I've had my fair share of dalliances with well-known people. And that's nice. And so when I'm like 85 and 90 and I write another book, I'll do the Quincy Jones thing and I'll name names. But right now, I'm gonna keep it low. Stop ringing my doorbell. See, it's COVID time.
So with that,
go away. I'm doing radio.
You don't got the ring?
No, the ring. That's surveillance.
That's how you could tell she from Harlem. That's surveillance.
You gotta put it outside.
So I'm from the olden days of the paid in full days. We used We never went home the same way twice.
I'm like that now.
See?
Yo, hold on. Now, see, that's a good. I got an OG question for you then. How do you think social media has impacted everybody's overall quality of life when you come from that type of era?
I think social media is really good in the way that now we don't have to wait for the gatekeepers to open up the gates and let us in. We can build our own brands. We can have our own content and things like that. So that's awesome. The worst part to me about social media is I see the way it's tearing down the girls. You know, we all listen to Jasmine Sullivan's album, her new album, Hotel.
Classic,
amazing. But when you're listening to it and they're talking about, you know, why they win and all that kind of stuff, why the girls, the Instagram chicks win and all that kind of stuff, I hate that because it's a false narrative. You know, it does feel like it when you're on there that those are the only kind of people that do win, but that's not true. We all know that. We all know that they're going to win, and there's going to be some girls that, like, you know, just go to school and come home, and, you know, they're going to win too, but it's just perception versus reality. And so a lot of times the perception on social media is a false one.
Gotcha. You know, speaking of perception, why did you, like, once again, I don't want to give away too much from Revelations, but why did you hide the fact that you had a successful advertising career when you were in the world of hip hop?
Sir, what value does that have in the streets? That you're an executive?
It's money. You're a boss. Well, I mean, it's crazy because nowadays that would be so embraced.
That would be so embraced. But back then, if you was a hot chick, you was just a hot chick, and that's all that mattered.
Yeah.
Like, no one wanted to hear that, you know, you couldn't hang out because you were NYU and you had a big test coming up. Or no one wanted to hear that you couldn't leave the club and go to Virginia Beach, which was one of our favorite things. Go to Virginia Beach or Myrtle Beach. You wouldn't take no clothes.
And you was a thought, Bev.
We would be, shut up. We would be in a caravan and everything. And no, but you know what, honestly, you didn't have to have sex. It was really an option. Because there would be so many of us that guys didn't care. They just wanted the company. Everybody was young. Remember that too. Like when you watch those movies like Paid in Full and everything, you have to remember, everybody was a kid. We were literally children playing at being adults. We were kids. So it was like fun. It was like, you know, like I say in the book, you know, I had a choice of going to Great Adventures with like some famous hustler or going to my boss's house in Litchfield County, which is one of the richest neighborhoods in America. And I chose to go to Great Adventures bus ride because I was like, I'm not going to miss the so-and-so's block party. I mean, you know, bus ride to Great Adventures.
But after that, you changed your mind and said, I need to be at these important meetings and gatherings for networking purposes so that later on, I'm not.
Have you guys never dealt with that in the beginning of your career where you didn't really get a career versus a job?
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes you have to make those decisions to go and be and participate in things with people from work because you do have to network outside of the office with them. That's how things really do get done.
That's how things get done. But when you're not coming from that, when, you know, my parents were working class folks. So when you're not coming from that, no one's there to explain it to you and to guide you, you don't know. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book because, you know, for me, I didn't have Black mentors until I got into TV. I always had white mentors and they were awesome, except there were cultural differences and nuances that they didn't get when I would come to them and say, well, what about this? And so it would have been very helpful to have had a Black mentor that been like, okay, I know you want to go to Great Adventures, but you want to take your ass up to Litchfield County. Right.
You know, Bevy, for a queen like you that has lived, would you rather have Ciara's prayer or Lori Harvey's finesse?
No, I won't make a choice because it really does depend on what kind of girl you are. Because see, the Lori Harvey, well, we don't even know how Lori Harvey is going to play out, by the way. But Lori Harvey might get it all done. Lori Harvey might do a Cassie on us and get out while the getting is good, which is what I attempted to do in the book. Y'all see that, right? I got off the streets around 28 because that's when you age out. Age out. You don't want to stay too long at the party. I think now probably you stay a little longer at the party, right, guys? I don't know. I'm not outside, but I think people now age out probably around 35.
35.
Yeah, you age out around 35. But in my day, it was you age out around 28. That's when you stop laughing at the jokes. And you know, in the book, I talk about some big hip hop icon that threatened to throw me out of a window at the Four Seasons Hotel because I told him that we were going to the VMAs, and instead of coming back to his hotel, because he was like, we're going to do a barbecue. And I was like, well, there's no barbecue facilities at the Four Seasons on 57th Street. But see, if I had been a young girl, I would have been like, okay, yeah, we're going to barbecue at the Four. No, I was grown. And that meant I was too old to be outside like that because I could no longer laugh and think that was cute.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, I think maybe Lori, we got to see how it plays out. She might do a casting on us. And then it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I mean, even if you look at Sierra did the same thing. Sierra was with 50 and she was with Future and Bow Wow, and she did what everybody does. She got grown and got married. That's what happens.
She had a great time at it. She had all the shenanigans.
Do you think we can't get away with as much nowadays as we could back then on some hotels? You know, because everything gets documented now. People see you out, people talk about it. Next thing you know, your business is all over the place. But back then, we didn't have those worries.
No, it was just in the crew, right? It was just like everybody knew you in the streets and they knew your story in the streets, but it didn't go into my corporate life. So when I was like, you know, hanging out with Pac and Big and lots of shenanigans in that era, the golden age of hip hop in the 90s, there was no way for my boss to know that, you know, maybe I was a little late for work for that meeting because I probably just gotten in from the club around 5 a.m.
Right.
But he didn't have to know that. But now if there had been social media, they would have been like, oh, you were at the X, Y, and Z party, yeah. Mm-hmm. You was at the tunnel until 4:30, yeah. You know?
Yeah, work. I've been posted from the club and then overslept or missed work. And they'd be like, yeah, we see Angela was in the club.
Right. Yeah.
But before we go, Bevy, tell them what Bevelations means or is.
Revelations is really about the honesty, the authenticity. And so it comes from the fact that like when I first started out, it was about Revelations. I was doing a reporting thing on the street where you could ask people real life questions. And then when I got my radio show, it was based on the fact that I didn't want my guests to come on there and give me canned answers because a lot of times they're on these press junkets. I didn't want to have the rote answers. So I was like, give me a revelation. And now the revelation relates to me. I'm giving you my revelations. This is my testimony. These are my real life lessons that I hope to impart to you because I learned it, you know, the hard way. I did all the fucks and fumbles, and now you don't have to because you can just go buy the book and, you know, you'll have one up on the folks.
All right.
That's right. Go out there and grab Bevy Smith's book, Bevelations, Lessons from a Mother, Auntie, and Bestie. Bevy, you are a treasure. I appreciate you so much, value you so much.
Thank you, my loves. I appreciate you guys, too. It was so great to do this with you, and I love it. Thank you, Envy. Thank you, Charlamagne. Thank you, Angela.
And I can't wait till we can do it in person.
Yeah, next time we see you in person.
Yeah, next time we do it in person, it'll be really good. I'll be smelling nice, everything.
All right.
All right. It's Bevy Smith. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.